prince and princess, animals that are people enchanted. Where can they be? Witches on their broomsticks way up high they sail. Over big bad wolves on each hill and dale in a fairy tale. Fly away to magic lands of fantasy. Sail to those enchanted lands across the sea. There's a land that's far away where folks live happy ever after in a fairy tale.
From the pen of Hans Christian Andersen, the tale of the Wild Swans. Once upon a time, in a dark forest not far from his castle, a king sat grieving over his wife's death. The king was so unhappy he didn't realize he had wandered into the land of an evil sorceress. The king looked at the sorceress, but in his sorrow he saw nothing.
Perfect. He still misses his queen. A splendid opportunity for me to gain power.
Changing herself into a young princess, the sorceress appeared so beautiful that the king immediately fell in love with her. So much in love, he took her back to the castle and married her that very day. But the sorceress was not at all kind to the king's children. She made an evil plan to get rid of the king's 11 sons and cast a magic spell.
Fly out into the world and look after yourselves. You shall fly about like birds and have no voices.
Elise, the king's only daughter, was horrified to see her brothers turn into wild swans and fly away from the castle.
My brothers, stop! Where are you going?
Though she ran quickly, Elise was unable to keep up.
Brothers, come back! Come back!
But the wild swans kept flying toward the sea. Elise knelt on the shore and wept. All that was left behind was a swan's feather. She knew this might be the last she would see of her brothers for years, but her heart told her that one day they would return. And so she waited in a cave near the sea as summer turned to winter and winter gave way to spring. Autumn came with wind and storm, then once again bitter winter. Years passed. Elise had grown into a tall, beautiful young girl, still longing for her brother's return. Beyond the sea, in a land unknown to Elise, her brothers passed their days forced to live as wild swans. One day, when the sun was just about to go down...
Is that? It is 11 wild swans! Brothers! 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 Brothers!
As soon as the sun had sunk beneath the water, the swans changed into handsome young princes. They were delighted when they recognized Elise. Laughing and crying, they told her all that had happened and wondered how they could take her back with them. They talked for hours. Then the brothers had a plan. They would weave a net of willow bark and carry Elise back with them. When the sun rose the next morning, the brothers turned into swans again and began their journey back to their land across the sea. Elise knew this was a dangerous journey, for her brothers would fly as swans as long as the sun was above the horizon. But when the sun went down, they would regain their human shapes. So they had to hurry, or be hurled into the depths of the sea forever. When sunset came, there was no land in sight. The swans had flown slower than usual because of the weight of their sister. Elise feared that they would all be hurled into the sea. Suddenly, the swans plunged downward.
Land! I see land!
They arrived safely, and just in time. Elise's wish at last had come true. Now, if only she could save her brothers from the evil spell. That night, a fairy appeared and told Elise,
Your brothers can be saved, but you must have courage and endurance enough for it. You must pluck the stinging nettles that grow only near the cave where you sleep, or in the churchyards. The nettles will burn and blister your hands, but they will also break the evil spell. Crush the nettles and you will have flax. Of this you must weave 11 coats, one for each of your brothers. Throw these over the wild swans and the spell is broken. But beware, from the moment you begin work you must not utter a word, or your brothers will die.
While Elise worked, a hunting party had arrived, led by the king of the country. He had never seen so lovely a girl. She bowed her head and dared not speak. If you're as good as you are beautiful, I'll put a crown on your head. You shall live with me and have your home in my palace. And so the good king took Elise to make her his queen. The wild swans flew above the cave where Elise had stayed, not knowing she was gone. All Elise could do was weep, for to speak would have meant the death of her brothers. In sorrow, she rode to the king's richest palace. Now, who should be waiting at the palace but the sorceress who had enchanted Elise's brothers? Elise was far too good and innocent for sorcery to have any power over her, so the sorceress tried to whisper evil things about her.
Don't be deceived by her beauty and by her silence, Your Majesty. Elise is a witch. Even now she sits in a room weaving coats of nettles. Who but a witch would do that? You refuse to listen, sire, but time will prove I'm right.
Elise used up all her nettles on the 7th coat. With terror in her heart, she stole down at night to go to the churchyard where the nettles grew. Behind her came the sorceress. She knew where Elise was going.
You see, Your Majesty, on her knees amongst the gravestones. Who but a witch would do that, eh?
Guards, take her! The people must judge her. In the dungeon, she set to work again. Even as the king's council accused her of witchcraft, Elise kept weaving the coats of nettles. Then came the order, she shall die as a witch. As Elise was sent to her death amid insults from the townspeople, she continued to weave her brother's magic coats. 10 coats were completed. She labored away at the 11th. All the townspeople came out to see the witch burn. Let her be consumed in the glowing flames, they cried. But Elise kept weaving.
The wild swans.
11 wild swans, Elise's brothers, arrived just as she completed the final coat. The spell was broken.
It's a sign.
She's innocent.
Look! The woodpile! It's sprouting roses!
With her brothers out of danger, Elise could break her silence.
Now I may speak, I am innocent.
With those honest words, the evil sorceress melted. A chorus of birds flocked around Elise and her brothers as they explained all that had happened, and the air was filled with flowers. Joy was in Elise's heart. Surely never had such a happy group returned to the palace to celebrate.